talking to Stan Natchez, another artist that has his imprint on the walls of El Farol. And Stan, I've known you for how many years?
About 18 years.
18 years? And how did we first decide, or did you decide? I think the artists have been the ones that decided, I'm going to be on the walls of El Farol. They sort of tell me after the fact.
Well, actually, what happened is I did the painting of the musicians for another collector, and I was rolled up, and I came in, and we rolled it on the wall, and we held it up, and you walked in as I was showing him the painting that they had bought, because I hadn't stretched it, and you go like, great, I want that on the wall. And I'm like, okay, well, we can work that out, and we did. And the good part is I did the painting on the wall. The bad part is I ended up with a lot of friends that I never did get a chance to know.
How's that?
Because of the credit that I had.
Oh.
Because we did half cash and half trade. So one Sunday I came in like the Old West, and I said, drinks for everybody. And it was like the biggest mistake I could have ever done, because for the rest of the next 5 years people were like, oh, Stan, don't you remember that night you bought it? Hey, how about another drink? I'm like, no, man, the credit's over, it's done.
The painting that Stan is talking about is a takeoff on Picasso's Three Artists, and your rendition of that is four artists. Mm-hmm. And obviously they're Indian artists with war paint on, am I correct?
It's the Mud Ponies that come.
Oh, that's right. We used to have a group that used to come for Indian market.
Right.
That came from, no, they're from here.
But kind of different. They had Darren and, you know, Charles Gasper was from Albuquerque,
that's
and
right.
Dave Shelley from Florida, and Tovar from LA.
Exactly.
So it was kind of a group of artists that came once a year to play. And the interesting thing is that Picasso, when he painted his three musicians, people don't realize this, that was the original Gypsy Kings, the grandfathers. That's who he hung out with.
Is that right?
And that's who he painted, the original Gypsy Kings.
That is terrific.
So to me, I was like, these are the, you know, the native Gypsy Kings here, because they were more gypsy than the gypsies themselves. And I'm like, come on, you guys only been here 4 days. Where are you going now? One would be going to LA, one would be going to San Francisco. They all be going different directions.
That's right.
So it was nice to be able to document that on the walls.
So you've also hung a lot of other kind of art, and you've also painted on the walls.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that always gets me about your painting, in my opinion, you try to bring cultures together, and I'm talking about Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Yeah.
What you did with that? Tell us about that.
Well, you see, I didn't realize, after living in maybe the last 12 years full time in Santa Fe, I start to realize that there's saints for everything. There's saints for the kitchen. There's saints for the birds, you know. And I never realized that there was a saint for the artist. So, and that priest, he was doing a painting. He was a painter himself. And I think that for us as artists, we always need protection, because we put ourselves out there. People really want to see our souls inside. They want us to tear whatever torment or happiness or whatever's inside. They really want that on the canvas. So we put everything out there, and sometimes it's there for the taking. So the artist will find himself maybe in the bottle, or you know, with women that really don't care for him, and then you think they do, and then you find yourself in this whole whirlwind of what goes around with oh, I'm Stan Natchez, I'm the artist, you know, and then after a while you start believing it, and you let that ego take over. So I think after a certain age in my life, I had an experience of traveling from Munich to Hamburg, Berlin, you know, Paris, London, Spain, Denmark, Australia. You start to see that there's only a really small circle of people that really care about you, that are there for you. So you start to realize that, you know, maybe that whole thing that you've been feeding yourself of, you know, fame. And I like the way Picasso put it, is if you're out for fame, it's only for the moment. But if you're out to paint, your fame will last a lifetime.
Terrific. Terrific. I was particularly thinking of, perhaps I'm a little bit more simple in my interpretation, but when I see your Ladies of Guadalupe, the difference that you have in bringing cultures together, from the first ones I've seen painted in Mexico. The ones in Mexico have those conchas around Our Lady of Guadalupe, but you brought it back a little bit more to your ethnicity. You have feathers around Our Lady.
Eagle feathers around her.
Eagle feathers. So that to me was bringing cultures together, and I thought that was very, very poignant.
Well, it's really easy for people to realize, if you just look around Santa Fe, that the Spanish and the Indian people were territorial minorities. And if you go to the villages around here, and there was a famous writer in Albuquerque that wrote, there's as much Spanish blood in the Indian villages as much Indian blood in the Spanish villages.
That's correct.
And some of the really ones that are real prevalent are ranchos de taos. It was the 7-mile rule. If you married an Indian, or if you married a Spaniard, you had to live 7 miles away from the pueblo. So that's where ranchos de taos was developed, the breeds. Abiquiu was another village that if you married a Spanish, you had to live in Abiquiu, away from San Juan and some of the other pueblos that were right there.
You're teaching me something, my friend.
So I think that to paint that, it's just natural for me to do that. I mean, my grandmother was a strong Catholic, and I can remember her having the Guadalupe up in her house, and how can I put both cultures, because whenever one culture occupies another, when the Spanish came here and occupied Native Americans, whenever one culture occupies another, there's a great cross-cultural influence. So the same thing, if you go to a Spanish market, the men are wearing ribbon shirts.
That's
and
right.
I don't even know if they realize that those are Indian shirts originally,
exactly
see? So there's a great cross-cultural influence here in Santa Fe. And I think that's what really keeps me here, and what brought me here in the beginning, is that there was still, people had their languages, their songs, their dances,
right.
and were very proud and adamant about who they were. And to me, that was the place that I wanted to be. That's where I wanted to grow old, where there was culture in the walls, and it wasn't like people like Sedona. They'll try to compare Santa Fe to Sedona, but Sedona is, there's no culture in the walls there. Santa Barbara, it's a beautiful place, but there's no culture in the walls anymore.
Well said, my friend. You're Shoshone.
I'm Shoshone Tatavian.
Tatavian.
Tatavian, in our language, Shoshone is band. There was never Shoshones, Apaches, Navajos, Comanches. These are all names that were given to us by Europeans and Spanish. So our real name in our band, Shoshone, is a band of linguistics, but our band is Tatavian. In our own language, it means the people who stand in the sun. And other tribes have gone back to their own names. Navajos are going back to Dene. And it's kind of funny because all tribes have their own name in their language that means the people by the water. There was a time the Papagos in Arizona, what means the bean eaters, they went back to their own name, which is Tohono-Atan, the river people. So all tribes mean, the traditional name means the people.
That's certainly prevalent here in New Mexico, and around Santa Fe and northern New Mexico, on into Albuquerque and further down. There's a lot of pueblos that are starting to go back to their original names that they had before. So that's, I think, healthy.
Well, it's for the first time in the last 20 years, Native people have started to, there's a great renaissance going on across America. There's more songs written today than the last 50 years, Indian songs in their own language. The dances are being brought back. For us at home, we have bird songs, and there's more bird songs that are being brought back. And they were recorded in the early 30s, in the 40s, and in the 50s. They were recorded on tape recorders, so these songs are not lost. So it's nice for that you see tribes doing some dances that they didn't have anymore. There's a great renaissance with the youth even feeling good about themselves of being Native. I think self-esteem is really kind of added to us. There was a time where our grandfathers, they weren't very proud of being Indian, because if you were the third-class citizen. And I think that it's nice to see that. It's nice to go to maybe the corn dance and you see kids from 5 years old to grandma at 75 or 80, and they're all dancing together. You know, it's nice to see that rebirth.
It is beautiful to see that. Stan, as far as your art, how do you think your art is progressing, or how do you think that it's changing, or are you going back, or do you think you're going forward? What's
For me,
happening with you?
right now I'm really trying to dig deep. I'm trying to paint what's really inside. And when you think, my background is education, I taught for 15 years.
That's right.
And when you read Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee for the first time in college,
that's right.
and you start to see really what happened to tribes. And in the beginning, maybe there was a time that I would try to paint so they could see the guilt. They would, and that's when I was younger. But as I got older and I matured, I just want them to see that we're alive. I'm not trying to paint the guilt, but some see it because I'm using currency and I'm using stock certificates.
That's right.
I've painted on the Bible, I've painted on the Book of Hebrew and the Quran. All three of them have the same origins. And when you paint on those kind of papers, people start looking at you like, oh God, this guy, he hates what's happened to us. Humor is the key thing for natives, is that we've used humor to stay alive. It's kept us alive. And you know what, I think for me, I paint on behalf of all my relatives, all my ancestors, the basket makers, the weavers, the jewelers. I feel in my way, in some poetic way, I lived all those lives. So when I'm painting now, what I'm really doing is I'm kind of really calling on the ancestors to come and help me do something different.
That's terrific.
A lot of artists say, oh, it's me, but it's a gift. The Creator gave me this gift to paint, and my responsibility with that gift is to share that with the viewer.
Is there a gallery that represents you?
Yes, Stan Natchez Art Studio. It's 201 Pellis Avenue. It's permanent, and for me, it's easier for me to represent myself, especially in the time that we're in and the economy that we're in. For you to sell a $10,000 painting and give 5 of it to a gallery, it could be tough.
Yeah.
But if I sell that same painting for 7, I'm still up more than I would sell with a gallery.
Everybody wins.
And no one can be more flexible than the artist.
That's right.
Depending on the moment, what you're going through at the time.
Stan, do you have a website?
Yes, it's StanleyNatchez.com.
Stanley Natchez.
Stanley, that's my full Jewish name. I was going to throw Horowitz in the middle of it, but I decided not to. But it's kind of funny because, you know, I think my dad came out of the era in the 50s that they wanted to have real Anglo names, you know, and it's kind of funny, like I've met other Indians named Stanley from Crow, Montana, and I was just like, you know, why did they give us Jewish names? Geez, you know, Stanley Horowitz.
That's terrific. Stan, I want to thank you. I enjoy your art on our walls, and we're partners in that. I hope you feel that way.
Okay. Oh, no, for sure.
And thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.